everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Creating Virtual Field Trips for Correctional Learners. Our webinar today is sponsored by Life Skills Reimagined, and today we have Stephanie Smedley on with us, who's going to share a few words. Stephanie, you're on mute.
There we go.
That's
Thank
better.
you so much. It is great to see everybody on a Friday afternoon. So thanks for being here. And I'm so excited to hear the content that we have presented for us today. So this is actually our first COAB sponsorship. So I'm really excited to meet all of you, and hopefully we'll see many of you at the conference in a few weeks. For those of you that I haven't met yet, Lift Learning is a social enterprise dedicated to using online learning and digital sharing as tools for social justice. And so again, my name is Stephanie, and we have a program called Life Skills Reimagined. So Life Skills Reimagined is really a reinvention of life skills education for both youth and adults. And so with that, it's being used by organizations in 28 states. We actually have 4 state-level implementations. And when it comes to corrections, when it comes to those of you who have unique security concerns, we actually have 5 different levels of security, including for those organizations who have absolutely no technology access, no internet access. We do have an offline option for you all as well. And so with that, just a brief intro to what we provide. We focus on 5 topics, and these are the 5 topics that we believe are most likely to prevent homelessness and create self-sufficiency. So those are personal finance, resiliency, communication skills, getting and keeping a job, and independent living. So one of the things that's most important to us is making sure that learners enjoy the program. There was a lot of learner voice that was included as we created the program to make sure that what we were doing really resonated with those individual learners. And so we also collect a ton of data to show the results of the program, as well as making sure that learners are getting a lot out of it. So as you can see, 96% of our learners actually would recommend the program to others, and that is similar across gender, gender identity, race, ethnicity, and even sexual orientation. But I could talk all day, but since we don't want to do that, I just wanted you to hear from one of our learners. And so hopefully this, actually, let me get out of it real quick. Sorry about that. We don't want that in the screen. So I'll hear from one of our learners, and she can tell you about her experience. All right.
Hello, my name is Rayla James. I am 21 years old and I am a senior at the University of Central Florida, majoring in elementary education. I am also a former foster youth. I spent about 4 years in Florida's foster care system, ultimately aging out at 18 and now living successfully on my own. Selfless Love Foundation sponsored me to complete the Life Skills Reimagined curriculum last year, and I really enjoyed this program for 3 key reasons. Number 1, it was especially versatile. It was completed on an online platform, which was very easy to follow and very accessible for a youth who also completes things on technology all the time. Number 2, it was very engaging. It was not boring. I was not tired from sitting for very long because it took a reasonable amount of time, but not too long. However, it got the content to where it needed to be, and I was able to pick up a lot of good information. And number 3, the content itself. It had topics that I was not expecting to see, like self-care, marriage, and proper ways to actually track your expenses when you're looking at your budget. The content was phenomenal, and it did go over other things as well that are basic foundational skills like how to get a job and taxes, which I also enjoyed. So in conclusion, I would recommend this program to the provider community as a supplement to whatever you are already doing, because I believe it provides the life skills that all youth deserve as a baseline for their transition to independence.
So that was Rayla. She is a youth that's completed our program, but it is available for both youth and adults. And just so you know, I mentioned data. It has been proven effective. We're seeing anywhere from 11 to 60% increases in knowledge, depending on that topic, and that's statistically significant. And we're also seeing huge increases in the confidence to live independently and big increases in self-efficacy as well. So we'd love to talk to you if you're looking for new programming. And I am excited to hear about our virtual field trip. So I'm going to turn it back over to James.
Stephanie, thank you so much. It looks like you're the perfect sponsor for today's webinar. We appreciate your support and everything you're doing in the field of adult education. So thank you. Okay, our presenter today is Alisa Coach Smedley. She is a 20-year veteran in the field of correctional programming. Her approach is rooted in science and delivered with passion. Coach provides practical tools and strategies to energize the classroom. And I had an opportunity to actually host one of the sessions that she presented on for the Alaska State Conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome. So you're in for a treat. I see people are already starting to enter their names and their locations where they're calling in from in the chat box. Continue to do so. And if you have questions, you can submit those in the Q&A section. And I think we'll have time at the end to get to those questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Can everyone hear me? Am I coming through loud and clear?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. I am so happy to be here. I'm actually in Albany, New York, exotic Albany, but I wish to be in Venice, hence my background. I'm so happy to be here. We have a lot of information to cover, but before I pull up my slides, I do want to give my Coach Smedley disclaimer. I am very eccentric, but I'm mostly harmless, okay? So if you haven't experienced the Coach Smedley session, buckle up and let's do this. I see many familiar names in the audience there. Hi, friends. So we are going to talk about creating virtual field trips. And this is a great topic. And I'm even going to give you the origin, like where this really started. So you can read this on your own time. This is some of my background. I've done a lot of different things in this work in many settings in 3 states now. In Ohio, where I was born, in Cleveland. I've worked in Maryland for 10 years behind the wall at a Max facility. And most currently, I'm here in New York. I mentioned being in Albany. I am very honored to have been sponsored last year by the Albany Small Business Development Center. They have helped me launch a virtual reentry platform. So that will be coming soon. I'm behind the scenes working on it now, but they've had faith in me and they've given me money. So I want to talk about our journey today. Why do virtual field trips work? Well, I'm going to dig deep in that and help you to see why this is a good investment of your time. I'm going to talk about your role. And I want to say right now, some of the things I suggest may feel like a lot of extra work. That's not my intention. I do want you to know that it's an investment that if you do it right the first time, you can continue to use it over and over with future classes. So please don't feel like, oh, more work. I'm not trying to do that. Believe me. After looking at your role, we're going to give you some destination ideas. I really want you to think about your own, but I will offer some suggestions that you can use if you like. And then I'm going to end with your secret weapon, the MFC. We'll talk about it. I'd like to begin with a voicemail message I received a few weeks ago. This is from a former student. And 5 years ago, I hadn't seen him in 5 years. 5 years ago, this is how I thought he was reacting in my classroom. Didn't seem particularly engaged, but was I wrong? He said, Coach Smedley, you were a great help as my reentry specialist 5 years ago. I think about how far I've come in life because of the seeds that you placed in my mind and my thoughts. I know that without the information that you taught me when I was incarcerated, I probably wouldn't be here. Not just the information, but the love and the care that you showed us when we were inside that place. It's the reason I haven't gone back. I am gainfully employed, got my CDL license, and travel the country, making a decent living for myself. I really do appreciate all the things that I learned. I appreciate it all. Oh, that's what we live for. And I want to tell you, you may not always hear the students who can come back and tell you that you helped, but know that every day you walk into your buildings with your clear bag, you are making a difference. What are some of the key words in this student statements? Well, the seeds. That's all I ever tried to do was plant seeds. I know I may not have them long enough to see the whole harvest, but at least I know that I planted seeds. Also important are the love and the care. I'm glad that he knows that even though coach was tough, I expected a lot. I was demanding. I would yell and scream on Thursdays, okay? But it was always with love and care. And then finally, his reflection about that place. We were in a maximum security facility. The building was actually where the DC snipers were held before they went to Virginia. So it was no joke. But just to know that I was the only smile he might see some days in that place. After hearing his message, it really let me know that maybe this makes sense and I'm doing something. So I wanted to share that because your students, many of them have the same experience. I just hope that you get to hear it. All right. So Coach Smedley is very scientific. I'm going to start with my approaches. So look for these in your scientific journals soon. My first one is the apple approach. What does that mean? Well, take the very same activity and use it in multiple ways. I call it the apple approach because what can you do with an apple? There's applesauce, apple strudel, apple pie. It goes on and on, hundreds of different uses for the apple. And I try to apply that in the classroom, and I'll illustrate that in just a moment. So the apple approach, and then the dish rag method. That is where you wring out any possible learning from a situation. So I told you I'm very scientific here. Let me show you what I mean. First, I'll start with the dish rag approach. The virtual field trips grew out of an activity that I did with my students. I mentioned a show called Good Times. And some of the younger ones were like, what's that? I'm like, oh, ouch, I feel old. So I went into a whole thing about Good Times. And it ended up being, I showed them a clip from YouTube, and we got into all of these different topics. Talk about ringing the learning. Look at some of the things we pulled out. And this was over time. This wasn't 1 week. This was like ongoing, because when you start engaging your students and the light bulb goes out, they want to know more. So run with it. We looked at who's Norman Lear. What were some other 70s family sitcoms? What about music? When in the theme songs, the lyrics, we actually studied the lyrics from Good Times. And I asked them, what has changed? Is it very similar to today, your childhood and upbringing? So these are all of the different conversations and activities that flowed just from me mentioning the show Good Times. And I'm using, you'll have this, this will be uploaded. It will be a separate handout, but you can see where I'm heading with this. Ring out as many learning opportunities as you can. The next one is same theme, but the apple approach. So I had them do, and we analyzed the art from Good Times, and most of the original art was done by an artist named Ernie Barnes. We actually looked at some of his dynamic paintings and how they portrayed what was happening on the show. I had them write an updated theme song. So if Good Times was out now, what would the theme song look like? So my rappers in the room came up with updated theme songs. We talked about the stereotypes in Good Times, and do they still exist? Okay, we had the drug dealer, the maintenance guy, the gangs, it's all in there. We debated what has changed. So that became a debate activity, very heated and impassioned. We also did a writing assignment about family resilience. The one thing about Good Times, they were not good times. Every time they got close to being successful and awesome, something fell through. And we talked about that. How can families be resilient? And then we discussed creativity and poverty. Artists have been poor forever. Rembrandt was poor until he got a patron. So all of these topics came from one idea, the show Good Times. I hope you see where I'm heading with this. So this was the origin of the virtual field trips. I really wanted them to experience it and be in the moment. Now, on to the show. Why do virtual field trips work? Well, first of all, it's the exposure. Many of the students that we work with, not all, I'm speaking in generalities, okay? But many of the students we work with have not gone beyond their geographic location or their cultural upbringing. They need to be exposed to other people, places, and things. When I worked in the DC area, I was amazed that the DC jail is in a neighborhood. I would hop off the train and walk 2 blocks right to the DC jail. And it was also a short walk to the Smithsonian's. But most of the students who lived there all of their lives had never gone to a Smithsonian. Part of that is because they don't feel welcome. They don't understand it. What's in there? Will they be nice to me? Can I afford it? There were so many barriers that in their mind, these aren't real. A lot of these are imagined, but giving them exposure and showing them how to access these locales will go a long way in terms of exposing them to more, okay? The next thing is personal interest. I foolishly asked a group if they had any hobbies. So I had a student, oh yeah, coach, I smoke weed. I said, no, dear, that's not a hobby. In some states, that's a new charge, okay? Bird watching is a hobby. So we had to have a discussion about what are hobbies. And that opened them up in terms of what are they personally interested in. This is what I mean about using the virtual field trips to open up new worlds for our students. One of my best practices is bringing some of my personal interests into the classroom. I love history. So everything I do is going to have a little history sprinkled in there. But showing the students that you can have an interest, it doesn't have to be expensive. And it really just speaks to who you are inside. So that's the second reason that virtual field trips work. Third is normal, the normalcy. I've had students over the years, not just 1 or 2, several have said, well, coach, I'm from the streets. You don't understand. I don't do regular stuff like regular people. And I'm like, crazy talk. What do you mean? And they would say that, and they honestly believe that. I don't do regular, normal stuff. I said, like, you mean pay taxes? I'm hoping. What do you mean? Do you do laundry? Do you go to the grocery store? I know the street life is exciting, but it's an illusion. Real life is kind of boring. I don't know what you all would say to that, but it kind of is. So having them understand that there is normal, not everything is like a Scarface movie where, it's all this street action. No, get comfortable with normal, okay? And lastly, possibilities. Teach them how to dream. I would ask my students all the time, have you ever taken a vacation? And mostly they'd say, no, I haven't. So I'd follow up with another question. How much do you need to go on a vacation? And I was floored when they would say, oh, I need $10,000. $10,000, where are you going? But in their mind, what they've pictured from these gangster movies and, looking around at the excitement of the streets, they need $10,000 to have an enjoyable vacation. So that told me they don't have context. They need to understand that, no, you can have fun on less than $10,000. So I say, pick a place. Where would you like to go? And we will begin to, with real numbers and research, plan out how much it would cost. The travel, the food, what souvenirs are you going to want? What attractions do you want to see? So we would break it down and make it practical. And they would realize, oh, I don't need $10,000. So that possibilities and giving them context really goes a long way to help them understand that virtual field trips can become real field trips and that they are very doable. Okay, moving on. Your role. Now, please, Don't take this personally. Coach does not mean to step on any toes, okay? But let me give you my quote first. Successful virtual field trips involve setting up the activity, presenting it with care, enthusiasm, and attention to detail. Wrap up the activity with practical information such as ticket prices, hours of operation, or anything else they need to know to make it come alive. Now, what do I mean? Let me get real. I mean, have the activity set up as your students enter the space. Don't run around and you're still hanging up stuff and copying stuff. Have it prepared. When I would do an activity, I did a big buildup. I'd hang a flyer. On Friday, we're going to Venice. When they got there, they walked in, I am greeting them at the door. And I am telling them, here's what we're going to do today. And they are like kids. I see your hand up. 1 second. Can you unmute yourself? How does that work? We have a question on the floor. While we figure that out, be prepared. Have them excited to walk into the room. A question that I always ask during orientation is, when did you stop liking school? The answer I heard more than anything else was 4th grade. So I have a 40-year-old who stopped liking school in 4th grade. I've got to somehow reconnect and let him know that, hey, you can be a lifelong learner and learning is wonderful. How do I do that? First, I have to make it appealing. I have to make it exciting and pull him in and let him know that he can trust me. I'm not going to embarrass him if he can't read. I'm going to have colorful, informative stuff everywhere in my classroom. So that's part of the work we have to do, is make our rooms inviting. I'm going to stop here to address these questions. I have some raised hands. Did you all put questions in the chat? Okay. Oh, Mr. Lee, I see Mr. Lee's hand is up too. Okay. James, help me. How do I unmute them so they can ask these questions?
I'm not seeing any hands up. This is a webinar style, so they typically can't have any audio unless you click on their hand. I don't.
So 3 of you have had hands up. Can you put your question in the chat? Can you type it in?
Either the chat or the Q&A would probably be best.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Lee. Okay, so the chat or the Q&A. I'll wait just a moment. I hope this is helping someone so far. Samantha says yes. Okay, so I'm on the right track. Thank you, Samantha. Okay, I don't want to lose time here. Someone said if you hold down the space bar, you might be unmuted. Hi, Carrie. Long time. Okay, I see something in QA. Awesome. How often would you do trips? Great question, Angel. As often as the schedule permitted. I know we have a set curriculum to follow, but there were times that lent themselves. Downtime, if we finished a unit, it can be an infrequent thing or it can be a regular thing. So it really is up to you and what your constraints are. So in the beginning, I would do it maybe quarterly. I'd have different places, but then towards the end of my 10 years, we would do it every week. What class are you teaching when you do these field trips? Great question. I was doing a workforce development class to get them ready for work. But let me tell you what Coach Smedley did. My job was to get them career ready, okay? We were funded by the local workforce development contract. So I'm like, oh, okay, so you mean they need to be job ready, right? I got that buy-in immediately. But job ready also includes life ready. Getting that job and not knowing how to carry yourself or not having conversation, that will hinder you. So I expanded the umbrella. Yes, I did. Job ready and life ready. And that's how I was able to slide in many other supplemental activities. Doesn't have to take away a lot of class time. Many times it was a packet for the weekend. I just had to assemble the information, do the research, and get it together. But oh, I love what you say, Mr. Lee, the students with low self-esteem. You want everyone to be able to participate. So even if you can't read or you're nervous about your skills, you have ideas, there's somewhere you want it to go. And I would ask them. I have a questionnaire, and I would suggest that get to know your students. What's your favorite sports team? Where would you go if you could go anywhere? And I would ask in the US, in the world, and what planet would you like to visit? Because now I'm pulling you in for some science. And you don't know the planets? Ooh, that's a lesson. So be creative. And again, I know the constraints. We had a curriculum we were supposed to follow, and I did, but I understood that they needed more, especially if they haven't been in school for a long time and didn't like school. So I'd have all these extra things. And I will say this, if you are starting to implement this, you're going to be looked at a little weird at first. Can you imagine entering the building with my clear bag and the officers are there? This is what that looked like. Okay, good morning, Coach Smedley. Let's see, 36 rubber ducks, a Dr. Seuss hat, and what's that? Oh, that's my Whipsy Waddle. But after a while, they knew what I was trying to do, and I started getting results. So I had to come in with all my weird stuff, but they were having less fights. Students who had been kicked out of every other program in the building were hanging on every day and coming to my class. So my odd methods over time, they worked. And let me just share this. I don't like politics, but I had to learn how to play it. For all of my critics, you know what silences a critic? Good numbers, funding, and publicity, the positive kind, not the negative kind. My numbers were great. We started getting funding from people who noticed our work, and we started getting great publicity. That silenced a whole lot of folks. They're like, bring your rubber ducks, go for it, because now we are the flagship program in the building. It took time. That took at least 2, maybe 3 years, but we got there, and it all started with my weird little methods. Okay, I'm trying to look at the chat here. Thumbs up, awesome. I never imagined how much fun this could be. Yes, Stacy, you're on board. Come on over to the bright side. Yes, someone's used virtual field trips with the special ed kids. Excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the presentation. I don't wanna lose any time, folks. So like I said, for you all, you do have to do some prep work. And if you do it, you can preserve it and then use it in the future, okay? Let's go. Have we ever seen these when you're out traveling, these brochures? I literally have thousands of these from all over, everywhere I've been. And they are wonderful because these are the kind of materials you can actually grab a handful for your class, which I would do all the time, or write the organization and ask them to send them. No, you got to pluck the staples out and, whatever your building security requirements are. But these are often very good ideas for the kind of field trips you can plan. So what does the educator have to do? Well, you have to do the research. You have to create the packets. I would say survey the students. Like I said, what's your favorite sports team? Where would you go if you could? Now I know what's on their mind, the geographic places that they're already thinking about. Imagine if they come in and now we have a virtual field trip to whatever place they've given you. It ties them closer to your program. And then downloading the destination materials. What are the hours? How much are the tickets? Make it real for them. A lot of them are just so disconnected. They were disconnected from school. They were disconnected from what they call normal life, okay? And I grew up in the same kind of trauma. Some of you know Coach Smedley's backstory. My dad went to prison when I was 10 years old. And in addition to him, I had 6 uncles and 1 aunt that did time in state, federal, they were all over the place. They have served 75 years behind bars. So this is real for me. I was in 4th grade when my dad got locked up, and it was very stressful. My hair started falling out. It was a high profile crime. So it's in the Plain Dealer was our newspaper. It was in the papers for months. So I have lived what I'm talking about. So I hope you appreciate that I can be eccentric, because I've seen the ugly and I didn't like it. So these are some of the kinds of things that you have to do as the educator. But I want to start with some skills. What are the key things that make virtual field trips successful? Number one is setting the stage. I told you I'd hang up flyers. Hey, Friday we're going to Vegas, or whatever. Set the stage, get them enthusiastic. Now, I'll give you some troubleshooting here. At first, they might think it's corny. That's okay. They're just doing that because they don't know what it is. They don't know if they can trust you yet. They don't know your angle. So they may think it's corny. Officers and other teachers may think it's corny. That's okay. Keep doing it, because you will win them over. Because the thing that we know, I recognized it and I've shared it with you. They stopped liking school in 4th grade. And most of that is because if you're behind grade level, reading or math, now it's not fun for you anymore. Now you're expected to, compete, and the other kids see that you're behind. So it's not a safe place for you anymore. But if you can have them feel welcome in the classroom, that is huge. And it doesn't matter their age, how dangerous they are. I've had serious drug dealers the officer told me once, he points to people and they get killed. I'm like, okay, I had uncles like that, didn't scare me. But I knew if I could get his heart and his mind, he would connect with the material. So you set the stage, because as an educator, guess what? You set the tone in your room. I hear teachers all the time say, oh, the students are so bored. My first question back is, how much energy are you bringing? And I know we're dealing with a lot of things. We're dealing with our hands being tied. We're fighting for more money. I know, believe me, I know what we're going through. But you have to put that aside and focus on the student. That is what will make everything better. So setting the stage. Next, I'll say is regionalize the experience. So it doesn't have to be some exotic location. It could be something local that no one really thinks about going to. So what's some hidden gem in your local area? That's great, because once they get out, they may say, well, I don't have much money. Well, you can maybe do a one-tank trip if it's close enough, but expose them to something local or regional, the neighboring state, something that's within an hour or two away. The other piece to this is, if they're going to drive, you do need to address driver safety and driver responsibility. That means leave your gun at home, leave your drugs at home, leave whatever. You cannot drive and do these trips if you have, this potential problem hanging over you. That's something you do have to stress. And I would just go there and talk about it. Don't have open containers. You got to drive clean if you're going to do this, because the worst thing in the world is if you get pulled over and arrested, and now somebody's got to come and pick the car up, pick the kids up. It's a mess. So we would talk about, when you go on these trips for real, go correctly and do the speed limit. Don't draw any unnecessary attention to yourself. Okay, so regionalizing the experience. And if you all need any ideas for this, I have free office hours. You can go to my website and you can sign up for free office hours. I'll talk to you about anything. If you need to vent, if you need ideas, please, I'm available to you. The third skill is you want to broaden their world. And that's not just geography. That is how things work. When I talked about, I ran a career center. So we talked about the economy. And they're like, well, what's the economy? All I know is drugs. I said, well, drugs play a part to the economy. Absolutely. It's not legal, but it's all part of the economic system. So I would give them vocabulary and then make it real world. One site that I love for broadening their world, I don't have time to go there today, but I want you to look at it. It's called Dollar Street. This lady is a sociologist. Her name is Anna Rosling Runland. She said, we wanted to show how people really live. It seemed natural to use photos as data so people can see for themselves what life looks like on different income levels. Dollar Street lets you visit many, many homes all over the world without traveling. This site is wonderful. Listen to her YouTube video so you'll understand where it came from. but this is a sample. I said, well, what would be good to show today? So I said, okay, let's look at incomes. This is the front page. And Dollar Street is based on the simple idea that your address is your household's monthly income. So all along this little scale here are people's houses, and it's based on how much they make, from the poor to the rich. So these are different countries from around the world and how much they make a month. Okay, and to really bring it home, I looked at how do they wash clothes around the world. They have literally about 40 or 50 different categories, and they have over 30,000 photos. So this is how people wash clothes all over the world, from a bucket to a pretty nice looking machine over here. Take a look at the context you can give your students. My students love looking at all of these different examples of, wow, poverty is not just a US thing. Poverty is all over the world. And compared to other places, we've got it pretty good here, even our poorest. But washing clothes, and you see the visual image. This site is full of information. You can copy these and make a packet. They have one on toothbrushes. How do people brush their teeth? Let me ask you, did you have to share your toothbrush this morning with 6 other people? In some countries, they do. They showed one toothbrush to 6 family members. This is real. And Dollar Street really gives you context, and it's rich with information that you can share with your students. If we were going to do a virtual trip to Brazil, I would hop on this site because you can pull it up by the country. There's a sorting feature for that. I would show, well, this is what the house looks like. This is what their washing machine looks like. This is what a typical bedroom looks like. Dollar Street is amazing. Spend a little time over there. Okay, let me stop and take a look at Q&A. Do we have anything new? Okay, nothing new there. What are you saying in the chat? Yeah, Dollar Street's a lot of fun. Have fun, Carrie. Don't be riding dirty. Yes. Okay, awesome, awesome. So take a look at Dollar Street. It can give you the materials to go in packets. So what about, where are some places that we can go? Coach Smedley, you told me how your virtual trip started, some ideas for pulling it all together. What are some ideas? I say be creative when selecting destinations for virtual field trips. Look beyond the obvious places. Be exotic and different. Some of them know the regular stuff from either their gangster movies or TV. Pick somewhere that they might not hear about. That is how you expand their world. Australia is pretty awesome. The animals alone are interesting. Give them places they may not have heard of or even thought of. Okay, and I'm gonna give you some categories. The sky is the limit. You can pick anything. So for art and culture, I would take, this is a Van Gogh. You can pull out how he grew up. What community did he grow up in? When did he make this painting? What are some other Van Goghs? You pull out an idea and just run with it, because you know the Apple approach and the dish rag method now. But arts and culture is always a good one. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. Hidden gems. We all know about Vegas, but what about Reno? What about some of these, the beauty and the geography? On the next slide, we're going to talk about national parks. That's another source. But the Doctor Who Museum, I just recently found out about this one. I'm a science fiction nerd. The Doctor Who Museum is awesome. It's in Canby, Indiana. Family attractions. You can also tie the activities that you share with them to their career interests. I had a lot of contractors come through my doors. There is an amusement park for construction. It's called Diggerland, and it's in New Jersey. Angel, have you been there before? But Diggerland looks amazing, and it's based on the construction world. Kids would love this. Some other options are Hershey Park. I love Hershey Park because Milton Hershey from the Hershey Bar Company, he carried his workers during the Depression. Not one worker lost their job because Milton Hershey kept paying for them. He built a little city. I've been there. If you ever go, there's whole communities of houses built by Hershey. And he kept the economy going. None of his workers lost their jobs. Okay, I mentioned the national parks. This is great because you can actually request pamphlets to be mailed out to you. And there are so many national parks. Some of them are more popular than others, but the websites have virtual trips too. You can pull videos and pamphlet information. Okay, a few more ideas before we wrap. You can look at music, sports, fashion. You can go to famous people's homes. You can look at US historical locations. There are so many ideas. The sky is the limit. And then once you determine a locale, compare decades. You know, what did a president from the 1800s, how was their home versus, you know, a recent president? Compare genres. I use music all the time. Country music writers are poets. I love country music. They're nothing but awesome stories. Introduce your students to country music and pick out some of the good ones. What about stats from the greatest of all time? You can pull that from various sports. Do they know about sports other than football, baseball, basketball? What about cricket? What about hockey? Hockey is fast growing though. But you can be creative and tailor it based on your students. You know your students. What would pull them in and make them interested? Famous places around the globe. This is actually an ice hotel. They have one in Iceland and one in Sweden, and I really want to go there. The entire hotel is made of ice. It's freezing, but they have everything, the beds, the tables, everything. Okay, as I turn the corner, because I do want some questions if we have any, your secret weapon. Once you develop a creative virtual field trip, preserve it for future students by saving the handouts, activities, brochures, whatever. Save everything in your magic file cabinet. Cue the music. Coach Smedley has a magic file cabinet. And as you can imagine, over 10 years, I had 2 magic file cabinets. They grew. Save everything. Because if one student has an issue, a problem, or a need, it will affect others. Or if you're doing the virtual field trips, keep your materials. This is what I mean about an investment. You do it now. Get your construction paper and your folders, whatever it is you're putting together, but you can save it and use it with future cohorts. Your magic file cabinet. Let's enjoy that for a moment. Final thoughts. Share your special interest if it's appropriate. I mentioned already, I love history. The librarian in our building would always know when I was talking about something in class. We stumbled onto talking about Gettysburg. I said, Gettysburg, I like military history. Gettysburg was not a planned battle. It just happened. There are like 5 highways that converge in this little town. And the armies during the Civil War just ran into each other and fought for the next 3 days. I said, guys, imagine the Bloods and the Crips just stumble upon each other. I said, there were 5,000 dead horses at Gettysburg. The town had to figure out what to do with them after the battle was over. They were pulled into that. So they ran to the library, and the librarian is like, you're talking about history again, aren't you? So what we started doing, we would plan it ahead. So if she knew I was going to talk about a topic or a destination, she would order books and already have them ready because she knew they would be asking. So my interest is history. I know I created some history buffs in my class. So share your interest. Plus, the other thing it does, it makes the job more tolerable. I'll be totally honest. There are days when I feel like I'm doing God's work, and there are days I just want my paycheck, and my resume is in my top drawer. Honestly. So to make it more tolerable, I love what I do, but there are days, you may be having one today or had that kind of week, but remember why you're there. And if you can bring something that brings you joy, like history does for me, bringing that in the classroom and the students seeing how excited I got about history, it spilled over onto them. All right, the next thing, we have to be security minded. So if you make a class set of packets, number them and check before and after an activity, just so you let the students know, hey, I'm watching, because everything is custody and security. I would clear anything I use, my rubber ducks, when I bought in board games. So sometimes the warden would say, well, give me those metal pieces. You can't use those, but you can substitute it with this. He showed me how to modify any of the materials that weren't acceptable. So whatever you do, let the students know, I know this is fun, but they will steal your stuff, some of them. So number it, keep up with it, have them sign it in and out so you know who had which number. Think security, that's number one. And then lastly, make the experience within reach for the students. Again, I've said this 3 times now, give them the ticket prices, the directions, print out the bus route there, fact sheets, whatever you can do to really make it within reach and let them know this isn't nothing special. You can go to this place or you can do this activity, because they feel so disconnected. Here is my contact info, my website and my email, and the phone number. Please reach out if there's any more information that I can share with you. While you're writing that down, I will take another look at the questions. Yes, the recording and the resources. I know they'll be uploaded. I don't know if they'll be sent individually to everyone. That's a COABE question. Yeah, for both of you about the recordings. I'm not sure. So that's a COABE question. I know everything's been submitted, so they have my handouts. And the chat. Bring something that brings you joy. Cheryl, I'm glad you caught that. And I mean that. There are days when we hate this. I know. I did this for over 20 years. I know. But how do you reconnect and remember what you loved about it? It's like an ex. At one point, you liked something about that guy. I'm going to stop here. And if y'all have any more questions or comments you want to put in, we have a few minutes. Oh, we have a poll. Ooh.
Well, that was an awesome presentation. I'm almost speechless. I just enjoy listening to you talk and watching you go through that. That was excellent. Thank you so much. I think Stephanie is still on. Stephanie, did you want to say a couple more words before we close out for today?
I'm just blown away. That was amazing, Coach Smedley, and you've given me so many ideas for what we do with our learners. So thank you.
Excellent. So yes, as Coach mentioned, there is a poll up. If you could take a minute just to fill it out really quick before you log off. I want to thank our presenter and our sponsor again for today's webinar. Such an awesome webinar. I know a couple of people asked about the materials. They will be posted to coabe.org along with a replay of this webinar. I don't think they're emailed out individually, but you can download the presentation on coabe.org after. So with that, thanks again, Coach Smedley. Thank you, Stephanie, for your sponsorship and partnership. And I hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.